Good day. I'm Michael Davidson, and this video is a short summary of the important takeaways about the program we have developed for the East African smallholder community. What I want to emphasize in 15 short slides are the gaps we have all identified, which need to be closed by 2050 at the latest to ensure a sustainable planet. I will briefly illustrate how this program not only closes the gaps, but surpasses them significantly, and how this program can easily be replicated in a seamless and cost-effective way throughout the African continent. Here are the gaps. We saw these in the last video. I've included a fifth one, which we will customize for each country. Kenya is at a 30% post-harvest loss gap. Nigeria, for example, is at 50%. So we're adding that fifth gap to accompany the first four very quickly, which is the 56% food gap calories that we need to produce in 2050, as opposed to those we produced in 2010, the 593 million hectare gap, if we will continue to farm extensively. And real quickly, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, extensive agriculture means if you are, for example, going to double your corn yield from 1 ton to 2, means that you're going to do it by adding a second hectare. So it means adding land. Intensive agriculture means you're going to double that yield on current land. We do have an 11 gigaton greenhouse gas mitigation gap that we have to close in order to make sure that we don't exceed a 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. And finally, the 31% gap in water. Again, if we continue business as usual regimes and don't change the way that we irrigate. And again, I added the post-harvest loss gap. So that's what we're looking at closing. So here's one of the very critical gaps in food security and agricultural productivity for Kenya. As you can see, the average gap between production today and the world average is 42%. But if we project the required need for food in 2050, Kenya today is at a 67% gap. This program, if implemented correctly, will not only close that gap, we will surpass it by 25%. How can we be so sure? What explains the gap? Well, only 2.3% of Kenyan farmers irrigate. Only 2% of Kenyan farmers are applying the basic macronutrients. And when farmers throughout sub-Saharan Africa do irrigate, the amount of water that they apply, that is of any utility to the plant, is only about 15%. And 30% in Kenya of everything produced is wasted. Here's how we close the gaps. First is irrigation. Irrigation is not a binary term. There are many methods and modes of irrigation. The one thing we will never do is promote an irrigation system that is not of the highest quality. We will select the most appropriate, cost-effective regime for each soil type, crop, and budget. I want to point out that irrigation uniformity, the extent to which the water that you apply is uniformly applied over the field, is a key tool to mitigate post-harvest loss. We will only use hybrid seeds. They have longer shelf lives, higher quality fruit, 100% germination rates, and another key tool for reducing post-harvest loss. Irrigation excellence requires two important metrics. First, we need to learn how much water to apply to a crop at any given day. And second, we need to learn how to apply that water uniformly. Applying the right amount and makeup of fertilizer is critical, and we will learn how to apply the fertilizer through the irrigation system ensuring a uniform distribution of fertilizer, and when to apply it for maximum output. And finally, we will apply only a few teaspoons of mycorrhiza throughout the irrigation system, which will significantly and positively improve root and plant development. All of these steps and more will be part of the curriculum that we've already designed and is in place. Here are the gaps, just in table form. We will surpass the need for food production in 2050 by more than half. We will eliminate extensive agriculture, again, which means we will increase yields on current land rather than cutting additional forests for crop production. The average greenhouse gas reduction of these projects that we've already implemented in other parts of the world, on average, is 0.39 equivalent tons per hectare. So there are 30 million smallholder hectares in sub-Saharan Africa, so 0.39 times 30 million exceeds the 11 gigaton gap that the entire world needs to mitigate to keep the overall temperature below 2 degrees. We can do it all in sub-Saharan Africa alone. Our irrigation efficiency will more than make up the projected extra water needed, and we anticipate a total 10% post-harvest loss. And in the end, a 200% increase in net income over rain-fed agriculture. And please remember, as a closing thought, that for every 1% increase in yield, there is a 0.31% reduction in poverty. These are the important takeaways. I'm very appreciative of your attention, and I hope that we can start working in East Africa soon.